Welcome to the WellOiled Canine Podcast, where your dog's health is our top priority. I'm Dana Brigman, a canine nutritionist and certified holistic pet health coach, specializing in aromatherapy, homeopathy, and herbs. Join me on a mission to help your dog eat better, feel better, and live longer. Now let's dive into a world of natural pet care and discover the secrets to a happier, healthier pup. Visit me at welloiledcanine.com. So, hello everybody. It's Dana Brigman and Angela Keefe, and we are two crazy canine coaches. One's letter K, one's number 9, and the other's spelled out. I got to figure out how we're gonna change our title into podcast category, but we're going to. So, we are enjoying these podcasts. We think they're kind of fun. We get a little sidetracked sometimes. So we're trying to stay the course on topic and make them meaningful to all of you. So we would love feedback on what you think about them. But anyway, I'm Dana Brigman from the WellOiled Canine. My website is welloiledcanine.com. That's letter K, number 9.com. And we talk about all things nutrition, essential oils, herbs, homeopathy, and anything that I can think of that will help your dog on a natural path to wellness. And Miss Angela will introduce herself.
And I'm Angela Keith. I'm 456 Canine Coach. I can be reached at 456 Canine, spelled out 456 CANINECOACH at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying under the radar still. I don't have social media or website. Word of mouth is awesome.
Yep, it is. It's the best marketing we have, actually.
And it's actually a good segue into what we're going to talk about today about the owner's part in a training program and when it becomes difficult for us to work with certain people. Maybe not necessarily that the dog's too hard, but that sometimes the people just don't get it, and it makes it.
And to tie that back to the natural wellness side of things, where the nutrition is, it's because training isn't limited to sit, stay, down, stay. There is an association to the health of the animal that we're trying to train. And is there an emotional root or a digestive issue or a vaccine injury or whatever those things may be that could be affecting the why the dog is behaving that way? And why pet parents often think you can, and frankly some other trainers, to be honest with you, but why they think that training is all we need, that there's not anything else they have to do but the 1 hour weekly lesson.
A behavior change is almost never like the only thing that's happening. There's always something else happening with the dog to create a massive change in behavior.
Yeah. And again, it can be nutritional, it can be environmental, it can be the pet parent's own emotion, their own stress. We'll call that mirroring, where the dog sort of mirrors and takes on those kinds of things. It could be transitional issues, change in the family dynamics. In fact, did I mention vaccine injury? Burden on the liver, all of those things are factors.
Yeah, dogs are not just dogs. They have big feelings.
Yeah. So what's your experience been in the pet parent who comes and sort of has that attitude of just train my dog, just train my dog?
Yeah, it's never that easy.
Right.
And it starts with a long, hard conversation, and they either accept it and we continue, or they don't accept it, and that's when we don't form a business relationship.
Exactly. And it took me a while to get to that point, right? Because as a new trainer a lot of years ago, it's like, I need business. And now I'm just like, whatever. Not that
Yeah.
I don't need the business, but I have, like you, honed in on who our services best help, right? And if I sit down and talk to you and say, look, your dog is showing signs of aggression, AKA anger, right? Chinese medicine tells us that anger lives in the liver. And so now I'm talking to you about a detox diet. And you go, no, I really just want the sit, stay down, stay stuff. And yet your dog's biting people. We are misaligned. And so Angela and I work really hard to help people kind of shift over out of that. It is just an obedience process because that's not ever all it is.
Yeah. I've definitely taken on some dogs with the intent that, okay, I'm gonna show them the end product, and once I explain to them how we got here, then the light bulb moment will happen and they'll say, okay, I believe you now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely some clients where I know it's not gonna click.
So how do you show them the end product? You mean in another dog or in their dog? What, or
And
that's through your board and train or what?
yeah, like it's going to have to be a board and train type situation where I'm bringing home, a dog that's now resolved or on the way to being resolved of whatever the issues were. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, if I can show them that their dog's not reactive anymore, their dog can walk through the neighborhood without feeling so stressed that they have to bark and lunge or hide and react from every dog. And they see the results and they're like, okay, how did you do it? And
Right.
that's where I can go back to the very beginning and say, okay, well, first we addressed any emotional issues your dog was experiencing. I made sure that they were getting a good, healthy diet every day. And a lot of times I will start a dog on a liver cleanse the day that they get here. We'll
Yeah.
start something
Same.
simple like milk thistle the day they show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you and I both ask those type of questions up front in our inquiry. What is your dog eating? What type of treats do they get? Do they have any health issues? Because all of that
Right.
is crucial in determining where we start with a client.
Right. So you mentioned, show them the end result, and it's like my dog's out in public and not losing its mind,
Yeah.
right?
They're like,
We had
well, how did
company
you do
over.
that? It's magic.
We had company over, and the dog did not freak out. Not only did he stay on place, which is the obedience piece, but he was not agitated, right? And so, if they can do those things for me and you, we need to convince the owner how to recreate that.
Yeah.
And so, in addition to all of this, in my head, it's about making sure the owner understands they have as much to change about their own behavior and expectations as the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we run into a disconnect a lot of times. That's probably one of the most common reasons I terminate my contracts with people is they don't live up to their end of the bargain.
Yeah. I, I
Right.
will, I will send a dog home with a homework list.
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually a week or two goes by, and we have a follow-up lesson already scheduled. And if I show up to that follow-up lesson or I check in between go home and follow up, and nothing's being done, and all I'm hearing is, well, they were good for 2 days, and now they're doing all of the same stuff again, and you didn't reach out to me, and we're not doing this together, then I usually will just walk away at that point. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is simple stuff, and it doesn't have to be hours a day, right?
right.
It doesn't. It's about setting the dog up for success, but also realizing that you have some obligations to change your pattern of language, right? To be more consistent, to follow through in things. And when Angela and I send you those homework notes, we didn't sit down and type it because we enjoy being on the computer. We did it because we need you to read it. We need you to read it and understand the why and the how that needs to take shape. And that's where I think we lose a lot of people is they're like, I just want to show up for my weekly lesson. You demo for me, and then I'm going home, and then they expect that it's going to be fantastic. And
Yeah.
those are the ones who struggle the most.
Yeah. And they're usually the ones that have no relationship with their dog to begin with.
Do you know how many times I have to teach someone to do what I call praise and play?
Oh my gosh,
That's
I know.
That's to celebrate at the end of a well done skill or a well done training, even if it's a craptastic training practice, right? To go, oh my God, you're the best dog ever. I love you so much, right? And to
Yes.
really hype them back up to overcome all of that. Because we're quick to say no, no, right?
Yep.
And we're quick to change that tone into, I, as the handler, am very frustrated in my dog's behavior, but not accept that that dog is frustrated in our behavior
Yeah.
and our tone and our expectation and our lack of clarity and our lack of consistency.
And nobody wants to do really good at something and not be recognized for it. And dogs are the
Exactly.
same
That's how
way.
your dog gets paid. I mean, people say to me all the time, I don't want to have to use treats. And I'm like, well, then you better show up. Cheerleaders and pom-pom style of celebration,
Yep.
right? And especially on things like the recall, right? If you want your dog to come off of whatever they are scenting and tracking and playing with, you better be far more interesting than that.
Yeah. And our clients have pet dogs.
Yes.
I've never had anybody, and if someone did come to me with a working dog, I would say this is out of my
Me
wheelhouse.
too. Yep.
But these are pet dogs that people are coming to us with, and they need help. And one of the first things I say is I'm not going to turn your dog into a robot. Like
Right.
if you want a dog that you don't have to praise and just does everything at the drop of a dime and has no emotion about it, you need to go find someone else that will train your dog to be a robot. But I'm going to train you to have a relationship with your dog so that training is fun and it's a two-way process.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And those robot dogs, if you are the type of handler that's out doing competition sports with your dog, or they have a real day job in the military or the police community or whatever those locations are, or that's a lifestyle you want to lead on the weekends with your dog, awesome. But if you're trying to take that dog and then wonder why he's uncomfortable with a new baby in the house, it's a different equation.
Yeah.
Right. I had a dog, and I would never have noticed this had they not come and stayed with me for a couple of days. I did, and I still will do what I call immersion training. You want to come spend a weekend at the beach? We'll go to all the places and work your dog and do all the things. But this dog, he was extremely obedient, but he was very uncomfortable in his own skin. And I would watch them get the dog out of the car and work the dog, and he did all the obedience exceptionally well, but he was not a happy dog. And it finally, I figured out by watching him and actually having them in my house while we're just sitting around talking about what's going on with this dog, that he's the dog that I said doesn't know how to dog. He didn't know how to play.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to turn off all that work. He had been what I call overtrained. And he slept with one eye open because he was terrified of missing the next cue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had him on place, he wouldn't lay his head down. He would never get to that restful state. He's like, what's next? If you had him in a sit stay or a down stay outside, it was a high alert version of that. What are you going to tell me to do next? And
Yeah.
he would wait as long as he had to, but he was waiting on the next thing.
Right.
He did not know how to relax.
Dogs
So
have to
that
feel
was,
pleasure.
what's that?
Dogs need to feel pleasure mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally.
And joy and playfulness and all those things. And so this family, this husband and wife, they actually had to learn to help their dog relax.
Yeah.
No amount of obedience was ever going to fix that because, again, he was overtrained in that area.
So what did you have them do?
Well, at the time, I didn't know it's what I was doing, but have you heard of like the vagus nerve reset and that sort of thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that recently, actually.
Yeah. So in my world today, I would start with that, but we also looked at things like CBD and essential oils that could help do some of that emotional release work, but they had to go out and find playtime.
Yeah.
And their initial resistance was, we don't have time, right? It takes a little bit of time to go play with your dog or teach a new game, but it should be fun. And so they resisted on the time element. And I said, in the absence of you doing this, doing something that's just playful or allowing him to be out and sniff for a while. And I don't mean sniff the neighbor's mailbox. I mean, get out in an environment where it's nature, like real nature, you know? In the absence of doing this, he is never going to be a dog that is comfortable in your home, and especially with a baby. That baby's going to trigger a greater level of anxiety in this particular dog.
Yeah. Too much unknown with
Yeah.
babies. That there's dogs that are overtrained like that, that are waiting for the to be told what to do every second of every day, can't process this uncontrolled thing in the
Correct.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they struggled initially, right? I mean, really struggled with, how do we play? How do we teach this dog to get out of work mode and into play mode? And in my opinion, working dogs and the ones that I've seen, like service dogs, even a service dog, right? They need an outlet for joy and pleasure.
Yeah. They have to be able to be a dog.
They got to let go of the burden of work we put on them 23 hours a day and deserve an outlet for their playtime.
Yeah.
And playtime does not mean they're out in the backyard by themselves, right? How many dogs have you trained? And I know you know this, where you send them outside and they're standing at the door like, let me back in. I don't know how to be out here by myself.
Well, my own dogs are like that. But it's also because they're conditioned here that they're never out of my sight. But yes, they don't dogs don't know how to play. They don't know how to go and explore on
Right.
their own because they've never had the opportunity to.
Exactly. I mean, I can remember when I had the kennel building and we had, 10, 15 dogs at a time, and we would put them on place, to really work that, and then one at a time do the training and all those kinds of things. But they would be sitting there like, I do not know how to settle in or to get out in the sun and roll over on their back and stretch it all out and to go, oh, this feels wonderful. They don't know how to do that. So, to your point, figure out a game that the human and the dog can do together and do that vagus nerve reset, which includes that going out in nature and letting them be a dog, letting them figure it out.
Yep.
That's it. Also reminds me that we sometimes are trying to be far too controlling, right? And this is part of why, like in aggression cases, I don't want to do board and train anymore, because I need to teach the owner to see themselves trigger up on the leash, or to feel when their gut reacted, when, oh, this is gonna this is gonna blow, right? And how to work below those thresholds, so that they are not part of the reason the dog continues to trigger. And you and I have discussed this before. That's where you and I can handle that dog beautifully, take him to all these places, and he's fantastic. But put him in the hands of a handler that is nervous or carrying their own anxiety or their own expectation of what's going to happen in that moment without a plan, they're a hot mess together again, no matter how long you and I have trained them.
Yep.
I had a client recently, her dog's just reactive to other dogs. Well, the dog weighs about as much as the handler. I mean, it's a big dog and a tiny female. And I noticed early on that she's trying to muscle control this dog, right? He lunges. She's sort of doing the little foot stepping behind him, trying to hold her ground, but she can't because he outweighs her, and she's struggling with it. So now she's trying to muscle through biceps to control that dog. And I'm like, do you realize you're even doing that and not helping the dog think through what they have to do, what their steps should be? And she said, I didn't, but that would explain why my arms and shoulders are always sore. And I'm like, yep, it sure will. So that's a habit she has to change.
Yep.
And the only way I can do that is really to start putting her where the leash is too long for her to do that, making her just control the handle and not the whole leash.
Yeah.
And even then, if the dog's lunging, she's still trying to pull it, but to really teach her and to video her seeing herself as part of the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, big dogs, little people.
I know, right?
Think about the dog you're getting before you make that decision.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, I have a monthly massage scheduled because I get these dogs in here that are so bad on leash
Yeah.
that the first couple days just going back and forth to the end of the driveway and back, we're arguing until things click.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a huge dog for that to be a problem,
No,
right?
definitely not. Just anybody that's erratic.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this sweet little 30-pound, probably border collie-ish mixed dog that I'm working with. She loves dogs on leash. She's been attacked on leash, so she's super reactive on leash. She's only 30 pounds though, but man, when she sees a dog and decides to defend herself, you better be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. And even leash handling is important for every dog size. And one of the things I really liked about the class Jennifer taught a couple of weeks ago was she took little like traffic cones, the little itty bitty ones that you use for drills and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the dog that was tied to the leash. And then it was like, I want you to move around and not move that object, not put any
Ah,
tension on it, or so that
yeah.
it doesn't flick or move or any of that kind of stuff. Because even those subtle little movements to the collar, especially if you're on like a prong or a slip lead or something like that, it can be extremely confusing. Why are you correcting me? I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Because you and I both teach skills with the leash, and that pressure, that turning it on and off means something.
Yep.
So when you're inconsistent about that, or when you're inconsistent about your language, then the dog's really confused. The human then gets frustrated, but the dog was already frustrated, and now it's just a disaster again.
Yeah. Now the leash is just a big source of frustration and nobody's
Mhm.
talking to anybody.
Exactly. At least not clearly.
No.
Yeah,
Some language that we do not speak.
right.
Have you ever, this has definitely happened to me. Have you ever started a consult and you never really get to the obedience training portion of it because you're able to resolve the issues just through like nutrition or emotion work, energy work, or anything like that? Like they see the change they need in the dog?
I want to say the answer to that is yes, but they don't believe that they don't need more,
Right.
right? They don't believe that training, that the obedience piece is not going to be necessary.
Yeah.
So I've never had anybody that I went, had these conversations, started making some changes, and then they said, well, we don't want to continue with anything else,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, even in like separation anxiety, one of the things that I've started doing, right or wrong, but it's kind of how I feel about all this today, is like you said earlier, if you're going to hire me to do this, I need you to follow my protocols. You can ask me about them, but the minute you fire up roadblocks and say, we're only doing training, then I'm limited. So in my separation anxiety protocols now, if you call me and say my dog has separation anxiety, I'm like, okay, we're going to set up a consultation, but I'm going to send you some homework first. And it's to work on the diet, to add a couple of perhaps essential oils or herbs or supplements that are calming and soothing and all that kind of stuff, and to do the crate training exercises, right? And you get 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less, before I show up for the consult. Because in most cases, if you do what I tell you to do, you're not going to need me to show up again. And so that's one place that I can prove it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I hadn't even been there. I'm giving you some stuff to do. And guess what? You're seeing an improvement.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I've done it that way many times.
I had a really cool, it was a fun case because the dog, it was a working dog, not a official working dog, but it was a German Shepherd dog that was really well trained, but got attacked on leash, and so had developed some major anxiety out on walks and stuff. And I came to sit, we talked a little bit on the phone, but I was like, I really need to see the dog first. And so I went to the consult, and I brought a couple dogs, and we let the dogs play with new dogs she hadn't met before, and just all happy and excited. And we went through the training that they already knew, and I showed them how to praise her properly. And before I left that day, we went for a walk, and she had zero reaction to any dog. And I was like, okay, that was easy. But I mean, it could have been resolved without me, probably, if I had given them, do this, sequence of things. But it actually is, it doesn't benefit us financially, but it is really nice to be able to help somebody that quickly, and just
Sure.
to show them that it's not obedience. It's not
Right.
something, you don't train fear out of a dog. You
Yep.
help them in other ways.
I had a little client fluffy dog years ago that the owner kept claiming was reactive, and that nothing we were doing was working. None of it was working. Right. She was just mad. So I'm like, well, I can prove to you that this dog is not the issue. So I took the dog to the park with her, and I put the leash in the woman's hands, and I said, look, we're going to walk around this park. And she's already, it's going to be dad, and he's going to be a mess. And she just had her whole story in her head. And I said, look, as we walk around this park, I want you to tell me a fairy tale. Make it up. I don't care what it is. Just make up and tell me a fairy tale. So we start walking, and she's like, once upon a time, and blah, blah, blah. And we make it all the way around back to our cars. And I said, how'd that feel? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, look where we are. And she was stunned. I mean, just completely befuddled. And I said, what happened? And she said, nothing. He did nothing. And I'm like, that's because you weren't cueing him to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Tell me a fairy tale. I'm gonna have to use that one.
I just made her think of something different.
Yeah.
Right?
I just usually talk to them about
Exactly.
something completely random, like, oh, that car over there, I test drove that.
Right.
But
Just
I like that. Tell me a story, because then they're really thinking more than just talking.
yeah. And even in like the reactive dog classes that I still would like for us to do again, uh, I would have clients, and they would be, I don't know, 8 or 10 dogs in this class, like a Saturday workshop kind of thing, right? And we'd get to the point where we get the dogs out, and yes, there's space between them, but nobody's losing their mind. And I'm having them work, and they're like, we don't understand. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they're like, well, we're listening to you. And I'm like, exactly. Exactly. I have kept you focused. I have given you technique. I have reminded you of the things you need to be doing to keep the dog from trying to handle the situation that you're not in control of. Because we gave the power to the dog. So And so again, that goes back to me, board and train for me and aggression is I need the owner to peel back those layers in their own, the way they're, you know what it's like, the kick in the gut when you're like, oh crap here, and you cinch up everything, right? I need them to learn how to stop that.
Yep.
So I wrote down, you had made a comment about a dog got attacked on a leash. So it's one thing if we're charged by off leash dogs as we're walking. It's another if we allow dogs to try and greet on a leash. The short answer is don't do it.
Don't do it. Yep.
Don't do it. I do teach my owners greeting skills and what to look for. But the biggest challenge is the other handler and the other dog that we're approaching. And so my general rule is, unless you're 100% confident, dogs don't greet on leash.
Yeah, that's my rule too.
And they never play on leash.
Oh,
they
yeah.
might get
No.
to say hi and then come back and sit and we're going to finish the human conversation, but they don't get to interact really.
Yeah. And too many people think that if their dog can greet another dog on leash and all happy-go-lucky about it, then they're doing well and they're socializing. I'm like,
No.
actually, you're setting that dog up for failure the first time another dog reacts. And that's what happened to this particular dog.
Yeah.
She felt like she was doing good by letting her dog always greet other dogs so that she liked other dogs. But then the one day that the dog didn't, they greeted each other at the beach, and then the other dog decided, hey, I'm gonna jump on your back and bite your face.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I mean, it wasn't even like a snap and growl. He was on her. Yeah. Luckily, nobody got hurt. She had a lot of hair, and
Yeah.
they were both on leash, so they pulled them off of each other pretty quickly. But I mean, owner and dog were just completely traumatized.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part of the whole thing, was having the conversation with her, like, no leash greetings. The best thing that you can ask for with your dog out on a leash is they ignore other dogs until you say, okay, now go meet.
And that's how puppy's trained.
Yep.
I had a recent incident, which reminds me again about the humans, and that's what this is. We're talking about dogs, but the human element of how and why it works. And one of them is, don't go faster than your trainer has told you it's time for. And what I mean by that is, in my reactive dog cases, for example, I'm like, you're not going for a walk the entire first week. Work the driveway.
People hate it when I tell them that.
I know. Work the driveway, maybe one house to the right and one house to the left, so that if things aren't going well, you don't have far to go.
Yep.
Right? Because if you go out and practice the bad behavior, then you're in trouble. But for many dogs, reactivity, there is a level of obedience and relationship we have to fix. And you are not ready to be 2 miles from the house until that foundation is really solidified. And so I had a client recently that I said that to, and then they messaged me a couple of days later and said, we had the dog down at the beach and it didn't go well. And I'm like, there were alphabets coming out of my neck, my mouth. I was like, why were you there? You're not ready to be there.
Yeah.
So again, that's the human element. We set that dog up to fail because we assumed that there's something that we know better. We as the human know better than what Dana and Angela told us to do.
Because you had one lesson and you think everything should be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And this from
trust the process.
Yep, this from the same person that his tone was extremely harsh with this dog. He's extremely heavy-handed with the dog. You know, all the things. And so this dog's going to be a mess, in my opinion, because he keeps setting her up to fail.
Yeah. I try to have the conversation quality over quantity. You can still get a mile in going back and forth up and down the driveway, or even 3 houses to the left and back and 3 houses to the right and back.
100%. And not only that, you are getting the mental fatigue that comes with learning, that comes with my handler is happy about what I just did, right? Or it's more clear to me. And so the dog processes not just the physical walk. And yes, they need sniffy, smelly time. Nobody's denying that. But you don't need to walk your dog a mile 3 times a day to get the body and the brain and the state of mind in the right space. So what else was on our notes? Let me find them. I know I texted it to you.
We got the foundation, moving too fast into big environment. Oh, the fear of hurting your dog.
Oh, yeah. That's a big topic. And we may get all sorts of trouble from the world out there.
Yeah.
How do we even want to start this one?
It is, yeah.
For me, you know, it's about people who are like, oh my God, we can't put a martingale on the dog, or God forbid we even talk about a prong collar and e-collar. So just we will set those aside. But the notion is we can't do those things because we're going to hurt our baby. We're going to hurt her little spirit. And let me tell you what, folks, you are more likely to hurt your dog's soul in your relationship when you change your tone and your energy is in that I'm frustrated and I'm going to communicate with you negatively, right? Then when you give them a very clear and consistent and appropriate consequence, which might be a little leash pop or the pressure release techniques that we talk about with the slip leads, they are less likely to harm your relationship than you showing up with a bad attitude. Agree? I think Angela froze. Angela, come back.
Did the internet just go out?
Yeah, there you are again. You're not moving, but I can hear you. I'm going to wait for you to come back and see if I need to cut this out. Are you there? Hey, everybody, it's Dana. We lost Angela due to an internet connectivity, but we want to hear from you. We want to know whether you're liking these or not. And if you need help, reach out to Angela at 456 K9Coach. No, that's wrong. Angela is available at 456K9Coach@gmail.com. My website is WellOiledCanine.com. So we look forward to hearing from you. Hope you're enjoying these, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for joining us on the WellOiled Canine Podcast. I'm Dana Brigman, your canine nutritionist and certified holistic pet health coach. I hope you found today's episode valuable and inspiring for your journey towards better health for your dog. Don't forget to visit me at thewelloiledcanine.com and check out our members forum for lots of discussions, interactions, education that you won't find anywhere else. That's at members.welloiledcanine.com. So join the community. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps me reach more people especially. So until next time, keep your pup well-oiled, well-fed, and well-loved.